6 months after my wedding, the photographer called me. "Sir, I found something. Come to my studio. Don't tell your wife yet. You need to see this first." What he showed me changed everything. It had been 6 months since the wedding, 180 days of what I called peaceful married life, which in hindsight was just ignorance, with better lighting. That morning, I was committing culinary war crimes in my kitchen, reheating something that used to be lasagna, but now looked like abstract art made of regret. I was halfway through deciding whether to eat it or file for insurance when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Sir, this is Daniel. Daniel Foster, the wedding photographer." I froze. You know that slight panic when someone from your wedding calls half a year later? It's never to say, "Congrats. You two are adorable." It's either, "Can we use your photos for promo?" or, "Hey, about that restraining order." "Hey, Daniel," I said, trying to sound casual while scraping the radioactive cheese off my plate. "What's up?" He hesitated, that kind of pause that instantly kills your appetite. "I found something. You should come to my studio. Don't tell your wife yet." Now, I don't know what kind of something he meant, but when a man says, "Don't tell your wife," you automatically assume it's either a surprise party or the end of the world. No middle ground. I laughed, mostly because my brain refused to process fear before caffeine. "You're scaring me, Daniel. You should be," he replied, voice low, serious. Then the line went dead. Beautiful. Nothing like a cryptic message before breakfast to spice up your day on. I stared at my reflection in the microwave door, chewing my lip. Maybe it was something innocent, like he found lost footage of my drunk uncle dancing to Beyoncé. Or maybe, just maybe, it was one of those moments life politely whispers, "Hey buddy, buckle up. We're about to ruin your faith in humanity." 15 minutes later, I was on the road, gripping the steering wheel like it had personally offended me. The drive to Daniel's studio felt longer than our entire honeymoon. I kept running scenarios in my head. Maybe Melissa, my wife, had planned a late surprise gift, a photo album or video montage. Maybe Daniel was helping her pull off some belated romantic gesture. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But that voice in the back of my head, the one that sounds like my mother, kept muttering, "Son, when people tell you, don't tell your wife. It's never about cupcakes." His studio was downtown, wedged between a vegan candle shop and a yoga center that promised spiritual rebirth through gluten-free breathing. Typical artsy corner of the city, smelled like espresso and ambition. I parked out front, still half hoping this was a misunderstanding. When I walked in, it hit me. Same place, same vibe, but something felt off. The air smelled like burnt coffee and tension. The walls were lined with photos of smiling couples who looked like they still believed in forever. I envied their stupidity. Daniel stood behind his desk, pale stiff like he'd seen a ghost, or worse, my wife doing something stupid. "Hey," he said, voice thin. "Thanks for coming." "Sure," I said, pretending I wasn't 2 seconds away from having a stroke. "You said you found something?" He nodded toward a laptop on his desk. "Just sit. And whatever you do, don't freak out." Famous last words, I muttered, pulling out a chair. The seat creaked under me, like it knew drama was about to unfold. Daniel opened a folder on the laptop titled Wedding Extras, because, of course, the apocalypse would come disguised as a USB drive named something harmless. He clicked through thumbnails until he found one and hesitated. "Listen, I wasn't sure whether to show you this, but after what happened to my mom, I couldn't stay quiet." That sentence alone deserved its own therapy session. "What happened to your mom?" He looked up, haunted. "She got conned by her husband. Lost everything." Great, love that energy. He double-clicked the photo. The image loaded slowly, pixel by pixel, like fate teasing me. First, I saw her dress. The white satin that cost me 3 paychecks and a portion of my sanity. Then her face, glowing, smiling. Except she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at someone else. A man in a suit, standing too close, my jaw clenched. "Is that?" Daniel exhaled. "That's Owen, her business partner, right?" "Business partner, yeah. The guy who called me bro every 5 minutes." He nodded grimly. "She told people he was family." I stared at the screen. Owen's hand was on her waist, not the polite family kind either. The photo was sharp enough to see her expression, playful, intimate. I remembered that moment clearly. The guests had been clinking glasses, the band was playing, and she'd slipped away to fix her veil. Guess she was fixing something else. I felt my stomach twist. You ever feel like your insides just logged out? That was me. I laughed bitterly. Wow, guess vows are just improv lines now. Daniel clicked another photo. This one even worse. Her sneaking a look at Owen while I stood in the background, smiling like the world's biggest idiot. The irony was cinematic. He rubbed his temples. I didn't mean to upset you, but you needed to see it. There's more, and it's not just about cheating. What do you mean? He hesitated, then opened a PDF file full of spreadsheets and scanned documents. Fake consulting firms, offshore transfers. Melissa and Owen are running a con. They've been scamming older investors, and from what I can tell, you're next on their list. For a moment, the room went silent, except for the faint hum of the computer fan. I didn't know whether to punch something or apply for witness protection. Daniel sighed. I stumbled across the files when she asked me to photograph some of their client events. Names didn't match. Numbers didn't add up. I started digging. I leaned back, processing. My brain was buffering. So to recap, you're telling me my wife might be cheating and running a white-collar crime ring on the side? He nodded slowly. I blinked. Well, at least she's ambitious. Daniel didn't laugh, but I could tell he wanted to. I know this is a lot. I'm sorry. I exhaled long and low. No, don't apologize. I always said she was too good at math. I just didn't realize she was using it for evil. He slid me a USB stick. Everything's here. Photos, files, messages. I didn't know who else to give it to. I stared at the tiny drive like it was radioactive. So what do I do now? He shrugged. That's up to you. But if I were you, I'd get ahead of it quietly. Quietly. Sure, because nothing screams quiet like discovering your wife is auditioning for a true crime documentary. I stood, pocketed the USB, and forced a smile. Thanks, Daniel, really. Next time I need wedding photos, I'll make sure the bride isn't a felon. He gave me a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. Be careful, sir. Yeah, I said, halfway out the door. I'm married to her. I think I already failed that test. Outside, the sunlight felt too bright, too honest. I climbed into my car, gripping the steering wheel again, staring at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I didn't look betrayed. I looked awake. Like someone who'd just realized their whole life was built on Photoshop and fake smiles. I started the engine, muttering, well, Melissa, looks like the honeymoon's officially over. Then I drove off, the USB burning a hole in my pocket and my faith in love shrinking faster than my phone battery at 2%. Whatever this was, I wasn't just going to sit back. I didn't know it yet, but that call, the photographer's call, wasn't the end of anything. It was the opening act of the messiest, most sarcastic crime drama my life would ever become. There are moments in life when you know your world just tilted, like hearing the words, "We need to talk," or realizing the car you just bought was previously owned by a flood. Sitting in Daniel's studio staring at that laptop, I had that same stomach-dropping, pulse-flattening, I should have stayed in bed feeling. The first click was enough to confirm that the universe had a sense of humor, and it was currently laughing at me. The image on the screen looked like something straight out of a bridal magazine. Perfect lighting, soft focus, fairy tale backdrop. Only problem? The groom in the photo wasn't me. Or rather, the man with my bride wasn't me. My wife Melissa was radiant in her gown, the lace catching the sunlight like it was designed by angels with overtime pay. And she was looking up at another man the way movie heroines look at heroes right before the soundtrack swells. I leaned closer, my eyes narrowing. That's not me, I said, though my brain already knew it wasn't. The guy was taller, darker hair, smug posture, the kind of man who looked like he narrated his own life in slow motion. Daniel nodded gravely, like a doctor delivering a terminal diagnosis. That's Owen, her business partner. Business partner, I repeated, tasting the word like it was a bad shot of tequila. She told everyone he was family. Daniel gave a humorless chuckle. Yeah, well, Family Inc. sure looked cozy that night. My mouth went dry. His hand, I started. Yep, Daniel said before I could finish. Definitely not resting in the safe for cousins zone. I blinked hard, trying to unsee it. No luck. My heart was sinking faster than my crypto portfolio. He clicked again. Another picture popped up, this one worse. Melissa and Owen behind the reception hall. near the ivy wall that cost me an extra grand to decorate. Her lipstick was smudged. His tie was undone. I remember that exact time during the wedding. I'd been inside thanking the guests while she'd gone to freshen up. Turns out freshening up had a new definition. Daniel hesitated before scrolling again, like even he didn't want to witness the next level of betrayal. Look, man, I thought it might just be friendly, but then I noticed something weird about the timestamps. These weren't taken during your reception. Some of them are from the rehearsal dinner. Some from the morning of the wedding. The morning? I said, my voice cracking slightly. So while I was giving my groomsmen pep talks about punctuality, she was giving her business partner something else? Daniel winced, pretty much. My laugh came out harsh, humorless. You know what's wild? My mom told me to trust my gut that morning, said, Melissa looks nervous. Maybe she's hiding something. And I said, Mom, relax. She's just emotional. Yeah, turns out Mom's intuition was FBI level. Daniel gave me a look that was equal parts sympathy and discomfort. It gets worse. Of course it does, I said. When does it ever get better? He pulled up another folder, this one labeled Accounts. Inside were PDF statements, contracts, and fake invoices that looked professional enough to fool a tax auditor. I found these attached to an email she accidentally forwarded to me, Daniel explained. At first I thought it was just spam, but then I noticed her name and yours on some of the company documents. I frowned. Mine? I've never even heard of these companies. You own them. Technically, he said, turning the laptop toward me. Or at least your name does. See here, Melissa used your personal info to register 3 shell companies. Same addresses, same email variations, slightly altered signatures. I scanned the digital forms. My signature crudely copied and pasted onto lines I'd never signed. That's identity theft, I muttered. Exactly. And the man in these photos, Owen, he's been transferring money through those fake accounts. They're using the companies to launder funds from bogus consulting services. Classic scam. The only difference is they decided to make you their silent partner. Very silent. I sat there staring at my name on screen like it belonged to someone else. Unbelievable, I whispered. She didn't just cheat on me. She invested in the betrayal. Daniel leaned forward. I debated showing you. But after what happened to my mom, she got conned by her second husband, lost her savings. I couldn't watch another good person get destroyed by someone they trusted. I nodded numbly, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. Appreciate that, I said, even though appreciation felt too small a word. We sat in silence for a moment. The only sound the hum of his computer and the faint clicking of the ceiling fan. Then I forced a grin, the kind people wear when their sanity's hanging by dental floss. Well, I said finally, at least she's ambitious. Con artist and multitasker. I sure know how to pick them. Daniel gave a weak smile. You okay? Oh, totally, I said. My wife might be Bonnie, her boyfriend's Clyde, and apparently I'm the getaway driver. But yeah, I'm peachy. He hesitated. You should go to the police. Yeah, I said, staring at the screen again. And tell them what? That my wife started an LLC of lies and used my name to fund her love story? I laughed again. Sound sharp. You know how that would sound? They'd probably ask if I have any proof she didn't just forget to tell me about our new business venture. Daniel slid me a flash drive. Everything's here. Copies, backups, emails, timestamps, even her messages with Owen. She's sloppy. I don't think she expected anyone to notice. I turned the tiny drive over in my hand. It felt like holding a grenade with a very pretty USB logo on it. So what now? I asked. He sighed. That's your call, man. If you go to the cops, she'll deny everything. If you confront her, she'll spin it. But if you wait, maybe you can find out what she's planning next. I rubbed my temples, feeling the beginnings of a migraine. Fantastic. A mystery with my bank account as the prize. Daniel offered a sympathetic shrug. Look, I'm sorry. I wish it was better news. I stood up, sliding the drive into my pocket. Nah, this is great, I said sarcastically. I've been meaning to spice up my marriage. Nothing says romantic revival like felony charges. He tried to smile, but it came out more like a grimace. Be careful, people like her. Once they know, they get dangerous. I'll keep that in mind, I said, walking toward the door. And Daniel? Yeah? Next time someone hires you for a wedding, charge double. Emotional damage isn't covered under your normal rates. That got a small laugh out of him. Take care, man. Outside, the sunlight stabbed my eyes like it was personally offended by my life choices. The city noise felt louder, every honk and shout, a reminder that the world kept spinning, even when yours just fell apart. I got in my car and sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. My mind replayed every moment of the wedding, the vows, the speeches, the way she'd cried during her toast. I thought she was moved by love. Maybe it was guilt. On the drive home, my thoughts ping-ponged between fury and disbelief. She had everyone fooled. Her friends, her family, even me. And I prided myself on being observant. I'm the guy who notices when someone rearranges the spice rack. Yet I somehow missed the fact that my wife was running a mini mafia operation out of our marriage license. At one red light, I laughed out loud. A woman crossing the street looked at me like I had just escaped from somewhere secure. You ever think about how dumb you have to be to get conned by your own spouse? I muttered to no one, shaking my head. The universe didn't answer, it never does. I wanted to call someone, my brother, my best friend, but what was I supposed to say? Hey, remember my perfect wife? Turns out she's an expert in corporate embezzlement and bad taste in men. Nah, I wasn't ready for the pity. Or worse, the I told you so. When I finally parked in the driveway, I didn't get out right away. I just sat there staring at the house I thought was ours. The porch light flickered faintly, the same one she'd insisted we install for safety. Now it looked like it was mocking me, blinking Morse code for you idiot. I thought about the USB in my pocket. One tiny device holding the receipts to ruin someone's life. My life, if I didn't play it right. I wasn't sure yet what my next move was, but I knew one thing for certain. The version of me who walked into Daniel's studio that morning was gone. That guy still believed in love, in trust, in happily ever after. The new me? He believed in evidence, backup copies, and caffeine. As I finally stepped out of the car, I looked up at the house and exhaled. All right, Melissa, I said quietly. You picked the wrong guy to scam. Then I walked inside, rehearsing the calm, clueless smile I'd need to survive the next conversation. Little did she know, the game had just flipped, and I had the photos to prove it. You ever drive home after finding out your marriage might qualify as a white-collar crime? Every red light suddenly turns into a therapy session. Every stop sign feels like it's asking, so, genius, how's that happily ever after working out? I swear the streetlights were blinking judgment that night. I didn't even play music. I was too scared Spotify would cue up something poetic and cruel, like Before He Cheats or Love the Way You Lie. The city passed by in blurry streaks of gold and regret. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my fingers went numb. I wasn't just driving, I was unraveling in motion. You know that kind of silence, where your thoughts get so loud they start echoing? That was my car, just me, the hum of the engine, and the mental replay of every red flag I'd ignored. Melissa's late-night work meetings, her sudden obsession with investment opportunities, the mysterious family business she never wanted to explain. At the time, I thought she was being ambitious. Turns out she was auditioning for American Greed, the home edition. Somewhere between denial and fury, I started laughing. Not a normal laugh, a borderline maniacal one. A guy walking his dog looked over like he'd just seen a Lifetime movie being filmed. Relax, I muttered to no one. I'm just processing emotional fraud in real time. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. For one reckless second, I thought it might be Daniel with more bad news, but no. Of course it was Melissa. Hey babe, do you want me to make dinner? The text glowed on the screen, innocent and warm, like she wasn't secretly running an investment Ponzi scheme with her business partner. I stared at it, debating whether to respond with something calm, like, sure, sounds great, or something honest, like, only if it's not poisoned. I went with calm, unsure. I'll be home soon, I texted, adding a smiley face because nothing hides emotional collapse like good punctuation. The drive felt longer than it should have been. The GPS voice told me to turn right, but all I wanted to do was drive straight into a sunset and pretend none of this existed. My mind kept looping back to the wedding, her vows, those sweet, trembling words about loyalty and forever. You make me feel safe, she'd said. Yeah, well, it turns out she meant financially safe. I could almost see her mother's smug grin that day, sitting in the front row, like she'd just won the Powerball. Maybe she already knew her daughter was marrying an ATM with a pulse. When I finally pulled into our driveway, the porch light flickered. Same one she insisted we install because a well-lit home feels welcoming. Right now, it looked like a spotlight for fools. I sat there for a full minute, just staring at the house that used to feel like mine. It looked different somehow. Too quiet, too perfect, too rehearsed. I got out slowly, each step heavier than the last. The door unlocked easily, as if it had no idea the man walking through it was about to lose his religion in the kitchen. There she was, Melissa, sitting on the couch in pajamas, hair tied up, spooning ice cream straight from the tub, watching a rom-com like her conscience was on vacation. "Hey, babe," she said cheerfully. "You're home early." "Yeah," I said, tossing my keys on the counter. "Apparently so were you 6 months ago." She blinked, confused. "What?" "Nothing," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "Long day." She shrugged, eyes back on the screen. "You want some ice cream?" "Nah, I'm good." I walked past her, pretending everything was fine, pretending I hadn't just seen photographic proof that my marriage vows came with footnotes. I went out to the porch, leaning on the railing, staring at the night sky. The air was cold and sharp, and my mind was racing faster than my heartbeat. "God," I muttered, "if you're up there, please give me patience. Because if you give me strength, someone's going to jail tonight." Behind me, I could hear her laughing at something on TV. The irony? It was one of those movies where a charming woman cons her boyfriend for money. Life really does come with sense of humor, just not the kind you enjoy. I stood there for a while, trying to decide what kind of man I was going to be about this. The angry kind, who flips furniture and screams about betrayal, or the quiet kind, who smiles while plotting something smarter than revenge. I used to think calm people were saints. Turns out they're just tired. I went back inside, poured myself a drink, a tall glass of bourbon that looked like liquid peace, and sat across from her. "How was work?" I asked casually. She didn't even blink. "Busy. We're closing another client deal next week." Owen's been such a lifesaver lately. I bet he has. I swirled my drink, watching the amber liquid reflect the living room light. "That's so. Must be nice having a partner that dedicated." She smiled, totally oblivious. "Yeah, he's great. Always picks up my calls, even late at night. His wife must hate me for it." I nearly choked on my bourbon. "Oh, I doubt that," I said flatly. If irony had a face, it would have been sitting right across from me eating cookie dough ice cream. Then she leaned forward, resting her hand on mine. "Hey, you okay? You seem tense." "Just tired," I said, forcing my jaw to unclench. "Long day." "You work too hard," she murmured, squeezing my hand. Her touch felt wrong now, like shaking hands with a stranger wearing your favorite perfume. "You need a break." "Yeah," I said, smiling tightly. "Maybe a permanent one." She laughed, thinking it was a joke. "Don't tempt me. I might just take you on vacation." "Oh, I'm sure you'd love that," I muttered, standing up before I said something that would turn our living room into a crime scene. "I'm going to take a shower." As the hot water hit my face, the realization hit harder. She had no clue I knew. None. She was still playing her part. The loving wife, the busy professional, the woman who occasionally texted heart emojis between wire transfers. It almost impressed me, the level of acting. Somewhere, an Oscar committee was missing out. When I got out, she was already in bed, scrolling through her phone. "Good night, babe," she said sweetly. I stared at her for a moment, watching her thumbs dance across the screen. For all I knew, she was texting Owen goodnight too. I wanted to snatch the phone, but I didn't, not yet. Because a plan was forming in the back of my mind. Slow, deliberate, patient. I climbed into bed, lying beside her while she drifted off and stared at the ceiling. The room was silent except for her breathing, soft and rhythmic, like a lullaby for liars. My chest tightened, anger buzzing under my skin like static. But I stayed still. Because anger was noisy, and noise gets you caught. Instead, I reached for my phone under the pillow and texted Daniel. "I saw her. She has no idea. Let's talk tomorrow." He replied almost instantly. "Meet at the diner at 9. Don't tell her anything. Wouldn't dream of it." I locked my phone, turned my head, and looked at the woman sleeping next to me. The same woman who once cried because I forgot our anniversary, the same woman who now probably had offshore accounts under my name. I should have felt hate. But what I felt instead was clarity, the kind that comes right before a storm hits. I wasn't going to yell or cry or beg. I was going to outsmart her. She'd built her little empire of lies carefully, but she forgot who she married. I work in compliance, for crying out loud. My entire job is catching people breaking rules, and now, apparently, I was married to the case study. As I lay there, the ceiling fan spun above me, slicing through the air in steady rhythm, and I thought about my next move. Evidence first, emotions later. She had the head start, but I had something better: motivation. When she rolled over in her sleep and rested her head on my shoulder, I didn't flinch. I just whispered softly, "You really shouldn't have messed with someone who reads fine print for fun." She sighed, content, completely unaware that her bedtime story was over, and her expose was just beginning. That night, I didn't sleep. I watched the sunrise crawl across the ceiling, painting the room gold while my brain drafted blueprints for her downfall. The game was on, and for the first time on that cursed wedding day, I wasn't the fool in the photo anymore. I was the man behind the camera now, the one watching, waiting, and ready. Sleep. And I broke up that night. It wasn't mutual. It was her, not me. Around 1 a.m., I gave up pretending. My eyes were open, my mind was a crime scene, and the ceiling fan kept spinning like a hypnotist saying, "Remember every dumb decision you've ever made." So I got out of bed, careful not to wake the sleeping criminal beside me, and padded down to the kitchen where the air smelled faintly of betrayal and leftover pizza. I flicked on the light. My reflection in the microwave looked like a man auditioning for a mental breakdown commercial. I grabbed a notebook, the kind I use for work audits, and slapped it on the table like it was a confession booth. If Melissa wanted to play secret agent, fine. I'd be the detective, budget version maybe, but still. Page 1, Operation Reality Check. Underneath, I drew 2 columns, red flags and why I ignored them. Spoiler, both lists were long. Red flag number 1, her sudden late meetings. I wrote claimed to be working with overseas clients, always came home smelling like expensive cologne I don't own. Red flag number 2, the new perfume. Deception by Dior. Okay, technically it was called Delicate Desire, something French and misleading, but the point stood. Red flag number 3. That time, she said, "If anything ever happens to me, make sure you keep my password safe." At the time, I thought it was romantic trust. Now I realized it was probably a contingency plan for when the FBI showed up. I sat there listing, connecting dots, trying to make sense of the timeline. Every girls' night out, every business trip, every phone call she took on the porch whispering, "Don't worry, he's asleep." Yeah, he was asleep. Now he's awake with receipts. At some point, I started laughing, one of those half-mad, half-holy laughs you do when you realize your life could easily become a Netflix documentary. Even the cat outside paused mid-meow to stare through the window like, "You good, buddy?" "No, Mr. Whiskers," I said aloud. "I'm not good, but thanks for asking." By 2 a.m., the notebook looked like a conspiracy wall without the string. My handwriting devolved into manic hieroglyphics. Check joint account statements. Investigate fake companies. Don't die of stress. I poured another cup of coffee, so strong it could have been used as jet fuel, then opened my laptop. Emails, texts, bank portals. I went through them all. I wasn't hacking, I was marital auditing. 2 hours later, I'd confirmed 3 weird payments from our shared savings to a consulting agency I'd never heard of. The description field said, Project Aura. The only aura I felt was rage. Then I checked her Instagram. Of course, she was private now, but old posts told stories I hadn't noticed. Subtle captions. Teamwork makes the dream work. Business partners. Translation. We're scamming boomers and loving it. Around 4 a.m., I texted Daniel. Found transactions matching your files. You awake? He replied instantly. Bro, it's 4 a.m. Go to sleep. Can't. Got caffeine and vengeance. He sent a laughing emoji, then added, We'll meet tomorrow. Bring everything. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and stared at the ceiling again. The anger had cooled into something sharper. Focus. My mom used to say, when people show you who they are, take notes, it'll come in handy later. Well, Mom, I was taking notes like a man trying to win an Oscar for best performance in a revenge thriller. I thought about waking Melissa, confronting her, demanding an explanation. But what would that accomplish? She'd cry, deny, manipulate, maybe even flip it on me. Classic gaslighter's playbook. No, I'd play this her way, quietly, cleverly, smiling while sharpening my knife. By dawn, the kitchen looked like a detective's office. Coffee cups, scribbled papers, laptop glowing like evidence. I opened the blinds. The sunrise hit the window in streaks of orange, and for the first time, I didn't think it looked beautiful. It looked like judgment. When Melissa walked in, yawning, wearing one of my shirts like she hadn't ruined the concept of trust, I forced a grin. Morning, we should, babe. She smiled sleepily. You're up early. Yeah, I said, sipping coffee. Couldn't sleep. Been thinking about finances. Her eyes flickered, quick but noticeable. Finances? Yeah, taxes, accounts, exciting stuff. I smiled, deliberately casual. She chuckled nervously. Wow, sounds thrilling. You have no idea, I said, my tone sugar-coated poison. She went to the fridge, humming. Same routine, like nothing was crumbling. Watching her was surreal, like watching a magician after you've already seen the trick explained. Every movement calculated, every smile rehearsed. When she left for work, I followed her car discreetly for a few blocks. Call it paranoia, call it curiosity, same difference. She stopped at the corner cafe, met with someone briefly, then drove toward her office. I parked nearby, watched her walk in, all confident heels and fake smiles. For a second, I almost admired the performance. Almost. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. You still alive, Detective Dad? Barely. Meet me at noon. Bring coffee. I drove home, adrenaline slowly giving way to exhaustion. The house was quiet again. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the notes, wondering how my life had turned into a mix of CSI, Marriage Division, and The Office. At 10 a.m., I crashed on the couch. Just as I drifted off, my phone rang, an unknown number. For a split second, I thought it might be Melissa's partner, Owen, calling to threaten me or accidentally send another incriminating text. Instead, a calm female voice said, Mr. Ward, Detective Carla Ruiz, Financial Crimes Division. I believe you spoke with your photographer, Daniel Foster? I shot upright. Yeah, you could say that. I've been reviewing the materials he sent me. You're in a dangerous position. If what we see is accurate, your wife has used your identity for multiple shell accounts tied to ongoing investigations. Oh, fantastic, I said dryly. Should I send her flowers or a subpoena? Mr. Ward, she said firmly, this isn't a joke. We need to meet, discreetly. I rubbed my eyes. Discreetly is my new favorite word. Where and when? Noon, the Silver Diner, downtown. Don't bring your wife, and act normal. Act normal. Got it, I've been practicing. After hanging up, I stared at my reflection in the black TV screen. Act normal, I repeated. Sure, just a guy whose wife turned him into a walking money laundering front. Totally normal. I took a deep breath, went upstairs, showered, shaved, and put on a clean shirt. Looking in the mirror, I almost convinced myself I still resembled a sane human. Almost. Before leaving, I picked up the notebook and flipped to a clean page. At the top, I wrote, Rule number 1, stay calm. Rule number 2, don't get caught being smarter than her. Then I tucked it under my arm, grabbed my car keys, and headed out. The drive downtown was smoother than last night's emotional demolition derby. By now, the chaos in my chest had settled into something colder, quieter. I wasn't panicking anymore. I was planning. At a red light, I caught my reflection again and laughed. Congratulations, man, I said to myself. You went from husband to private investigator in under 24 hours. The American dream. When I parked outside the diner, Daniel's car was already there. I spotted him inside through the window, sipping coffee like a man who hadn't slept either. Detective Ruiz sat across from him, mid-30s, sharp suit, that cop posture that says I can spot a lie before you blink. I squared my shoulders, walked in, and thought, all right, let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. As I slid into the booth, she gave me a nod. Mr. Ward? Detective, I replied. So how's your morning? Catch any other cheating spouses turned financial terrorists? Daniel kicked me under the table. Ruiz didn't smile. Let's focus. She spread out files, each one neatly labeled with dates, bank transfers, company names. Your wife and her associate, Owen, have been on our radar for months. We didn't know she had a husband involved Until now. They've been laundering money through fake consulting firms. Your accounts are next. Next? I asked, eyebrows raised. Oh, good, I was worried I'd been left out of the fun. Ruiz ignored my sarcasm. We can catch them, but we'll need your help. Don't confront her. Don't mention this meeting. Act like nothing's wrong. When she tries to access your accounts, we'll have enough evidence to arrest them both. I leaned back. Act normal again. I swear, that's becoming my life motto. Daniel chuckled. You're good at it, though. You've been pretending to like her cooking for years. Touché, I said. Ruiz slid me a small recording device. If she talks about moving funds, record it and keep your phone close. If we need to move fast, we'll call. I nodded slowly, staring at the little gadget. You realize I'm not trained for this, right? I sell risk management, not live it. Ruiz's eyes softened slightly. You'll do fine. Most people crumble under betrayal. You've got composure. Thanks, I said. It's not composure, it's caffeine and suppressed rage. She almost smiled at that. Whatever works. Just be careful, Mr. Ward. When the meeting ended, I stepped outside, the afternoon sun hitting my face. I felt something new, clarity mixed with adrenaline. The pieces were finally fitting together. My wife wasn't just cheating, she was running a full-blown con, and I was about to flip the script. As I walked to my car, I whispered to myself, all right, Melissa, you built the game, but I'm about to change the rules. The Silver Diner looked like it hadn't updated its decor since the Eisenhower administration. Chrome booths, flickering neon sign outside that read, breakfast served all day and night if you beg, but the coffee was nuclear strength, which was exactly what I needed. I was halfway through my second cup when Daniel slid into the booth across from me, looking like a man who had seen too much data and not enough sunlight. A minute later, Detective Carla Ruiz arrived, trench coat, bun so tight it could cut diamonds, eyes that said, I haven't laughed since 2009. She placed a folder on the table like it was a weapon. Mr. Ward, Daniel tells me you're ready to cooperate. Cooperate? I said, swirling my coffee. Detective, at this point, I'm ready to join the Witness Protection Program, change my name to Chad from Ohio, and sell furniture on TikTok. Daniel snorted, which earned him the look from Ruiz. She wasn't the kind of woman who believed in humor. She believed in facts, files, and caffeine as a moral duty. She flipped open the folder, revealing pages covered in charts, account statements, and photos that made my stomach twist. Your wife and this man, Owen Thatcher, have been laundering money through a chain of fake consulting firms. The funds originate from older investors who believe they're buying into legitimate projects, retirement condos, tech startups, even charity foundations. Because nothing says charity like wire fraud, I muttered. She continued unfazed. They move the money overseas, then pull it back through dummy invoices under your name. We believe the next phase involves transferring your pension and joint savings. If that happens, you'll be liable unless we intercept it. Daniel leaned forward. That's why we called you in. We can catch them red-handed, but you'll have to play along. I raised an eyebrow. Play along? What am I, an undercover husband? Exactly, Ruiz said. We'll need you to act as though you still trust her. Keep your routine. Keep her close. When she brings up money, especially moving funds overseas, you stall, feign confusion, and let us know. The moment she initiates the transfer, we'll step in. I let out a slow whistle. You want me to sleep next to my own embezzler while pretending I'm just another clueless husband who can't work a spreadsheet? Daniel smiled grimly. Well, you've already been doing that pretty well. Touché, I said. You realize if this were a movie, I'd die in Act 2, right? Carla didn't blink. Then don't. I stared at the coffee for a beat, watching the surface ripple. This was insane. 6 months ago, I was debating whether to buy an air fryer. Now, I was part of a sting operation. I nodded slowly. All right, detective, I'll do it. But if she finds out, I'm haunting both of you. Deal, she said. We'll keep communication secure, use encrypted text, signal, not regular messages. And Mr. Ward? Yeah? Don't underestimate her. Fraudsters like your wife are charming because they have to be. They'll make you feel crazy for doubting them. Don't fall for it again. I gave a humorless laugh. Detective, at this point, I wouldn't trust her to water a plant. Ruiz gathered her folders, leaving me with a small black recording device that looked like a USB stick. Keep it on you. When she starts talking business, switch it on. We'll handle the rest. She stood, tossed a few bills on the table for her untouched coffee, and left without another word. Daniel exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for an hour. Man, she scares me. Yeah, I said, I like her. Reminds me of my mother. He laughed weakly. You sure you're ready for this? Ready? No, but I'm motivated. That's close enough. We clinked our mugs together in the most depressing toast ever. To Operation Divorce and Conquer, I said. To not dying, he replied. Back home, I rehearsed normalcy like it was a Broadway performance. Smile, nod, joke, repeat. When Melissa walked through the door that evening, I greeted her with a kiss on the cheek and my best impression of domestic peace. Hey, handsome, she said, dropping her purse on the counter. You're in a good mood. Trying a new thing, I said. It's called coping. She giggled, misreading my sarcasm entirely. Well, keep doing it. It's sexy. I almost choked on air. Noted. Dinner was pasta. Hers always tasted like ambition and misplaced confidence. I twirled the fork, pretending interest while she launched into a monologue about new business leads and international clients. I could practically hear the quotation marks. That's great, I said. What kind of clients? Just, investment people, she said vaguely. I'll show you sometime. Can't wait. Every word out of her mouth now sounded like a riddle with bad intent. When she said partnership, I heard crime ring. When she said meeting, I heard felony. After dinner, I excused myself to the garage, claiming I needed to fix the water heater. In reality, I recorded my first report into the little device Carla gave me. Subject A, aka my wife, continues to act normal. Possible sociopath. Spaghetti underseasoned. Morale low. If the detective ever played it back, she'd either arrest me or recruit me for stand-up comedy. Later that night, I lay in bed pretending to watch a show while she scrolled through her phone. Occasionally, she'd glance at me with that smile that used to melt me and now just made me itch. Every time her screen lit up, I wondered if it was Owen on the other end, whispering sweet nothings and wire fraud strategies. I wanted to ask, why, Melissa? Wasn't I enough? But then I remembered, people like her don't break hearts because they're missing something. They do it because they can. Power's their love language. The following morning, Daniel texted, Detective says to test her curiosity. Bring up the idea of investments, see if she bites. So at breakfast, while she poured orange juice like we were on a sitcom, I casually said, you ever think about investing some of our savings? Stocks, crypto, or maybe real estate? She froze mid-pour, then smiled too quickly. Funny you mentioned that. Owen was just talking about an opportunity overseas, tax-efficient, great returns. Bingo. Oh yeah, I said, pretending interest. What's the project? Something to do with sustainability, she said, waving a hand like details were beneath her. You wouldn't understand the technical side. You're right, I said, sipping my coffee. I barely understand why my toaster has a Wi-Fi button. She laughed. You're adorable. Yeah, adorable, and about to record you, sweetheart. When she left for work, I sent a message to Ruiz. Target engaged, mentioned overseas investments. She replied within a minute. Good, stay in character, we're closing in. I stared at that message for a while, feeling equal parts vindicated and terrified. This wasn't just emotional drama anymore, it was federal. That night, Melissa came home late, smelling like expensive perfume and deceit. She slid into bed beside me and whispered, I think we're about to hit something big, life-changing. I forced a yawn. You don't say. I'll tell you soon, she murmured. You're going to be proud of me. I smiled in the dark. I already am. Except what I really meant was, I already know. The next day, I met Daniel at the diner again. He looked both thrilled and exhausted. Carla's team traced the shell accounts. They're building the case. You just need to keep her talking. I nodded. Easier said than done. She's got the world's best poker face. Then be better, he said. You got something she doesn't. Conscience and sarcasm. Two things that have never saved a marriage, I replied. He grinned. This isn't about saving it. It's about ending it properly. We clinked coffee mugs again, partners in the weirdest alliance since Batman and the IRS. Back home, I doubled down on my role. I complimented her more, asked for business advice, laughed at her jokes. She glowed, mistaking my compliance for devotion. It was almost poetic. Her lies fueled my act fueled her confidence, and her confidence would soon fuel her downfall. A few nights later, while we were watching some finance documentary because irony is my co-pilot, she said, you've always been so responsible with money. Maybe you should let me handle some of our accounts for a while, just to balance things out. I turned slowly, schooling my face into mild surprise. You handle money? I thought numbers gave you hives. She laughed lightly. I've learned a lot from Owen. He's a genius with investments. Oh, I bet he is, I said under my breath. What? Nothing. Just thinking how lucky we are to have such smart friends. She smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. You'll see, babe. Once this next project closes, we'll finally be free. Free. God, that word tasted like rust. Later that night, when she was asleep, I slipped into the hallway and called Ruiz using the encrypted app. She answered instantly, voice steady. Mr. Ward? She's making her move, I whispered. Mentioned handling accounts, said Owen's teaching her. Good work, the detective said. We're ready. When she asks for your signature or transfer authorization, delay her. Tell her you need to review documents. We'll have agents on standby. I nodded, heart pounding. Copy that. Be careful, she added. People cornered by exposure do desperate things. I glanced back at the bedroom door where my wife slept peacefully, the picture of innocence. Yeah, I said quietly. You don't have to tell me twice. When I hung up, I leaned against the wall, exhaling the breath I'd been holding since this nightmare began. My life had turned into a chessboard, and every smile, every word was a move. The trick was to stay calm, stay invisible, and let her believe she was still winning. I went back to bed, staring at the ceiling as the clock ticked toward midnight. For the first time, though, I didn't feel powerless. I felt aligned, and I had allies now. A detective with a steel spine, a photographer with a conscience, and a husband who finally stopped pretending. As I closed my eyes, I whispered to the darkness, Sleep tight, Melissa. Tomorrow, the real show begins. If the Oscars ever decided to create a category for Best Husband, pretending not to know his wife's a criminal, I'd be walking home with a gold statue. The past 2 weeks turned me into an actor so good I started believing my own lines. I smiled. I joked. I nodded like a golden retriever, all while secretly recording everything on a USB drive smaller than a Tic Tac. Every morning I'd wake up beside Melissa, stretch, yawn, and think, Good morning, fraud in a robe. She'd kiss me on the cheek, humming, blissfully unaware that I was part husband, part undercover operation. It was weirdly exhilarating, like living in a rom-com directed by the FBI. She kept playing her part too, Mrs. Perfect. She packed me lunch, left cute sticky notes in my car, have a productive day, love, and occasionally sent flirty texts during the afternoon. But I knew what was behind those emojis. Strategy. Manipulation disguised as affection. And damn if she wasn't good at it. I caught myself almost believing her again some days. Almost. At night, I'd sit across from her at the dinner table, pretending to listen while she talked about work. I'd record everything on the little device Detective Ruiz gave me tucked under my watch. Sometimes she'd say something innocuous like, Owen says the deal is progressing, or our new client wants confirmation of the funds. And I'd smile, nod, and say, That's awesome, babe. Meanwhile, I was mentally filing it under evidence, Exhibit B, the idiot's dinner conversation. But the hardest part? Acting normal when my blood was practically fizzing with fury. Because she didn't just betray me romantically or financially, she insulted my intelligence. Every time she called me baby, I heard Mark. Every trust me sounded like sign here. Still, I played dumb with Oscar-worthy dedication. When she said, Honey, have you ever thought about opening a joint overseas account? I blinked innocently. Overseas, like Switzerland or those islands with the rich people? She smiled sweetly. Exactly. Oh, I said, scratching my head. I think my credit score still screams broke American. Would they even let me in? She laughed, the sound tinkling and hollow. You're so funny, she said, patting my hand. I'll handle it. And right there, she gave me my opening line for Detective Ruiz. Target plans to handle account personally, proceed with surveillance. The routine became my second life. By day, I worked, texted Daniel updates, and pretended I wasn't living in an undercover soap opera. By night, I cooked dinner, smiled through conversations, and took careful notes after she went to bed. Sometimes I'd step outside to the porch, whispering into my phone for Ruiz's team, like some wannabe spy with a suburban zip code. One night, I was out there recording a message when our neighbor Tom popped his head over the fence. Everything good, man? You've been pacing out here a lot lately? I froze mid-whisper. Yeah, I said quickly. Just rehearsing for a presentation at work. At midnight? Yeah, global team. Time zones. He nodded like that made perfect sense. All right, man. Just don't go full Breaking Bad on us. Wouldn't dream of it, I said with a smile. Oh, the irony. The more I observed Melissa, the more I realized how effortlessly she lied. It was like breathing for her. She'd say one thing, mean another, and make you feel stupid for doubting it. Watching her became a masterclass in deception. She laughed louder than she used to. She hugged longer, smiled bigger. It was like she was overcompensating, trying too hard to look innocent. Babe, you've been so sweet lately, she said one evening while we were watching TV. You okay? You seem different. Just grateful, I said, leaning over to kiss her temple. You've been my rock. If sarcasm had a taste, it would have been that sentence. She smiled, touched. You're such a good man. I try, I said. Some of us have to be. She didn't catch it. Of course she didn't. She was too busy texting someone under the blanket. Probably Owen, or as I now referred to him in my head, Mr. Financial Freedom and Fraudulent Activities, LLC. Detective Ruiz texted one morning. Stay patient. They're preparing to move large funds. We'll intercept when she initiates. Patience, sure. Tell that to the guy who has to share a bed with the woman who used his name to commit crimes. That night, Melissa cooked her famous lemon chicken, the one that could strip paint off a car, but looked pretty on Instagram. I've been thinking, she said casually, slicing into her chicken. Maybe we should diversify our assets. Owen says we're missing out by keeping too much in one place. I almost smiled. Ah, there it is, I thought. The magic word, assets. Assets? I asked, acting intrigued. Sounds fancy, like something rich people say before losing everything. She laughed. No, silly. It's about financial growth. You mean like a pyramid scheme? She froze mid-bite. Why would you say that? Just teasing, I said smoothly. You're the smart one. I just sign what you tell me to. She relaxed, smiling again. Exactly. That's why we make a great team. Oh yeah, the dream team. Bonnie, Clyde, and the guy who pays the Wi-Fi bill. Every night I'd send updates to Ruiz. Target discussing asset transfers. Recommends moving joint savings. Suggests I trust her. Trying not to laugh. She'd reply quickly, keep her talking. We're setting up a trace. Meanwhile, Daniel sent messages like, dude, you're killing it. You've got this. I'd respond, yeah, but not literally, hopefully. Around the second week, things escalated. Melissa came home one evening looking radiant, too radiant. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat on my lap, all flirtatious energy. That was never good news. Babe, she said softly, you know how much I love you, right? Ah, the preamble to every life-altering lie in history. Sure do, I said. What's up? She bit her lip, leaning closer. There's an opportunity Owen and I discovered. Short-term, high yield, completely legal. Legal, I repeated, always comforting when someone has to specify that. She ignored my jab. We could triple our savings in months, but we need to move fast. Fast, I said. Like, how fast? Tomorrow. There it was, the big play. She pulled out a folder, neat, glossy, professional. Inside were fake contracts and forms with my name already filled in. All you have to do is sign, she said sweetly. I stared at the papers, at her perfectly manicured nails, at the same woman I once promised forever to. That's a lot of trust, I said slowly. You trust me, don't you? She asked, voice soft, eyes wide. I forced a smile. Of course. She beamed, kissed me, then went upstairs, probably to text Owen. It's done. Except it wasn't. Not yet. As soon as she disappeared, I turned on the recorder and whispered into it like a late-night radio host for law enforcement. Subject presented documents for fraudulent transfer. Attempting to secure signature. Operation delayed pending further instructions. I sent the same note to Ruiz. She replied immediately. Do not sign. We'll move tomorrow morning. Be ready, I exhaled. Tomorrow. The end was finally in sight. That night, I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling, listening to the soft sound of her breathing beside me. How many nights had I spent like this? Trusting her, protecting her, loving her? And for what? A tax evasion starter kit and a side relationship with her business buddy. I rolled over and whispered, You could have had everything, Melissa. But greed's a hell of a thing, huh? She stirred slightly, mumbling something about documents. Even in her sleep, she was working a scam. Morning came slow and golden. I got up early, showered, dressed, and made breakfast. I poured her coffee exactly how she liked it. 2 sugars, a splash of almond milk, and just enough guilt to taste. Wow, she said, walking into the kitchen in her robe. Someone's in a good mood. Big day, I said. You have no idea, she replied with a smirk. She handed me the folder again. Once you sign these, we can take them to the office and finalize everything. Sure thing, I said, pretending to skim. I'll read through them first. She frowned. You trust me, don't you? I smiled sweetly. With my life, just not my money. She laughed, thinking I was kidding. I wasn't. She grabbed her purse and kissed my cheek. Meet me at the office in an hour, okay? Wouldn't miss it, I said, watching her leave. The moment the door shut, I grabbed my phone and texted Ruiz. She's heading to the office. Papers ready for signing. Today's the day. Her reply came seconds later. Copy that. We're ready. Hold your position until we give the signal. I set the phone down, exhaled slowly and whispered, Time to finish the performance. When I got in the car, the folder on the seat beside me felt like the heaviest thing in the world. It wasn't just paper. It was the final act of a marriage built on fiction. As I drove toward her office, I rehearsed my lines, my expressions, my smile. I wasn't going there as a husband anymore. I was going as evidence. For 2 weeks, I'd been the fool, but today I was the finale. And when the curtain fell, Melissa was going to find out the hard way. Some acts don't end with applause. They end with handcuffs. Morning sunlight has no business looking that innocent when your marriage is about to end in a federal sting operation. The day felt too bright, like God accidentally left the saturation slider on high. I ironed my shirt, polished my shoes, and stared at myself in the mirror, trying to look like a man whose life wasn't a government-approved reality show titled, How to Catch a Spouse. Time to shine, idiot, I told my reflection. The guy in the mirror didn't argue. He knew the plan. Melissa had texted earlier. Meet me at the office at 10. Bring the signed papers. Translation: bring your wallet to your own mugging. I tucked the unsigned documents into my briefcase, checked that the tiny recorder Detective Ruiz gave me was still hidden in my jacket lining, and left the house. My hands were shaking, but I told myself it was just caffeine. The drive downtown felt like heading toward a movie climax. Suspense music playing in my head, every red light a drumbeat. I caught myself rehearsing lines like an actor. Be calm, be stupid, be believable. Her office building was one of those glass and steel monuments to capitalism, the kind where the receptionist smiles like she's on commission for happiness. I walked in trying to look casual, like I wasn't wearing a wire and an impending nervous breakdown. Mr. Ward, the receptionist chirped. Melissa's expecting you? I bet she is, I said. She blinked. Sorry? Nothing. Great building. Love the plants. I took the elevator up, heart pounding hard enough to register on the Richter scale. As the doors opened on the top floor, I spotted Melissa waiting by the conference room, polished, radiant, and entirely too pleased with herself. She looked like the poster child for trust issues. Hey, you, she said, walking over and kissing my cheek. Her lipstick smelled expensive. You look nervous. Public speaking, I said. Always hated presentations. She laughed, clueless. Don't worry, see, this will be quick. Owen's setting up the transfer. Oh, good, the co-star's here too. Inside the room, everything screamed fake success. Glossy tables, motivational quotes on the wall. Dream bigger, earn faster. Yeah, right. Two interns hovered by laptops, pretending not to hear anything. Then Owen walked in, grinning like a used car salesman who just hit his bonus. He clapped me on the shoulder. "Ethan, buddy, ready to make some real money?" I fought every instinct not to wipe off his hand. "Absolutely," I said. "Let's get rich or indicted together." He laughed, thinking I was joking. People always do right before karma starts printing receipts. Melissa gestured toward the table. "Here are the final documents. Just a few signatures, and we'll be on our way to doubling our assets." I took my seat, placing my briefcase beside me. The air conditioning hummed. Somewhere in the hallway, I thought I heard footsteps. Ruiz's team taking positions, maybe. I hoped. Owen slid the papers across the table, all smiles. "We've already filled everything out for you. Very straightforward." "Straightforward," I repeated, flipping through pages filled with numbers that could have been hieroglyphics for all I cared. "And this temporary transfer, how temporary are we talking? A week, a lifetime, eternity?" He chuckled. "Just until the funds clear offshore. Then we'll reinvest." "Offshore," I said slowly. "Always loved a good nautical adventure." Melissa frowned slightly. "Babe, you're overthinking it. It's routine. Routine fraud. Yeah, I'm learning," I muttered. "What?" she asked. I smiled wide. "I said I'm learning." She relaxed again, mistaking sarcasm for stupidity. "Honestly, that's been my greatest talent lately." I twirled the pen between my fingers, stalling. "So, let me get this straight. We send money overseas, wait for it to grow, and then it comes back bigger?" Owen nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. Just like a boomerang. Except boomerangs usually return." He blinked. "Sorry? Nothing, just clarifying." The recorder in my pocket was catching every word, and I prayed to whatever deity governs Wi-Fi signals that Ruiz was listening. Melissa reached over, gently touching my hand. "Sweetheart, you trust me, don't you?" That line hit differently now. Once upon a time, it meant love. Now it meant trap. I looked into her eyes, the same ones that said forever in our vows, and smiled. "Of course I do." I lowered the pen, poised above the signature line. Then, right on cue, the conference room door swung open. Detective Ruiz strode in, flanked by two uniformed officers. Her expression could freeze lava. "Melissa Ward," she said evenly, "you are under arrest for financial fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit money laundering." For one glorious second, silence reigned. Melissa's face drained of color. Owen's grin melted like cheap ice cream. The interns pretended to vanish behind their monitors. "What?" Melissa stammered, rising from her chair. "This is insane." Ruiz produced a warrant from her jacket. "Not as insane as the evidence. Step away from the table, ma'am." I leaned back, watching the show. "Wow," I said softly. Talk about bad timing. Melissa turned to me, eyes wide, voice trembling with fury. Did you know about this?" I met her gaze, calm as a Sunday sermon. "Know about what? That you were about to make me the proud owner of 3 shell companies in Belize? Hard to miss." Owen lunged toward his laptop like a panicked squirrel, but one of the officers pinned him before he could hit delete. "Hands off, genius," the cop barked. Melissa shook her head, tears forming, the kind she used to weaponize in arguments. "Ethan, please, you don't understand. Owen said this was legal." "Yeah," I said, standing. "And I said I'd believe in Santa again. Guess we both lied." She stepped closer, desperate. "You think this ends with me?" I smirked. "I sure hope so. I'm running out of popcorn." Ruiz nodded toward me briefly. The tiniest acknowledgement of teamwork, then gestured to her officers. "Cuff them." The click of metal echoed through the room. It was, without question, the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. Right up there with opening a beer after a long day, or hearing your ex's new partner filed for bankruptcy. As they led Melissa toward the door, she twisted to look back at me. "You set me up!" she screamed. I shrugged. "Technically, you set yourself up. I just brought snacks." She cursed under her breath as the officers guided her out. Owen, meanwhile, looked like he was calculating which friend he could call for bail money. Spoiler, none. When they were gone, the interns finally peeked up, wide-eyed. One whispered, should we still order lunch?" I stared at him. "Absolutely. Get extra fries. It's a celebration." After the arrests, Ruiz and I stepped into the hallway. She removed her earpiece, exhaling slowly. Good work, Mr. Ward. You held it together. Held it together? Detective, I deserve a medal. Or at least a therapist on retainer. She cracked half a smile. We'll handle the rest from here. Her accounts are frozen. You're legally clear. Clear, I repeated. That's a nice word. Haven't heard it in months. She nodded. I'll be in touch about the trial. As she walked away, Daniel appeared down the hall holding 2 coffees like a proud soccer mom at a victory game. Did I miss the fireworks? I grinned. Only the best part. She said you set me up and everything. Classic, he said, handing me a cup. So, how's it feel? I took a sip, savoring it. Like justice with a hint of caramel? He laughed. Man, I still can't believe your life turned into a legal thriller. Yeah, neither can my blood pressure. When I got home that afternoon, the house felt eerily quiet, too clean, too still. Her perfume still lingered faintly in the hallway, a ghost of lies past. I sat on the couch, exhaled, and realized something strange. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. My phone buzzed, text from Ruiz. She confessed, said you were too nice to notice. I laughed out loud. Too nice, I repeated. Guess niceness finally paid off. Then another text from Daniel. Beer later? To celebrate the downfall of evil? Make it whiskey, I replied. The good kind. He sent back a thumbs up and a meme of a man dropping the mic. That evening, I opened the windows, letting fresh air fill the space where her lies used to live, and I poured myself that whiskey, raised the glass to the ceiling, and said, here's to peace, patience, and prenups. The amber liquid burned going down, but in a good way, like closure in liquid form. I picked up the wedding photo from the shelf, the one Daniel took months ago. We looked happy. Well, I looked happy. She looked like a woman already planning her next heist. I set it down gently, face down, and walked outside to the porch. The sunset painted the sky in streaks of orange and purple. And for the first time in half a year, I could actually breathe. No pretending, no acting. Just silence and the distant hum of cars passing by. Later that night, Daniel stopped by with takeout and a grin. Thought you might need a victory dinner, he said, holding up a bag of burgers and fries. You're a saint, I said, waving him in. We ate on the couch, watching the evening news. Sure enough, there it was. Local couple arrested in multi-state fraud scheme. Melissa's mugshot flashed on the screen. Daniel whistled. Damn, she really did wear that much makeup to her crimes, huh? Apparently deceit photographs best under good lighting, I said, chewing a fry. The anchor continued. Sources say the husband assisted authorities in uncovering the operation. Daniel raised his cup. To the man of the hour. I clinked mine against his. To bad decisions that end well. When he left, I stood at the window again. The world outside looked exactly the same, but I wasn't. The fear, the humiliation, the confusion, it was all gone. In its place was quiet confidence. Not the loud movie hero kind, the real kind you earn after surviving chaos. I turned off the lights, heading upstairs. As I passed the bedroom, I stopped, staring at the empty side of the bed. There was no sadness, just relief. Lying down, I whispered, "Game over, Melissa." And for the first time in months, I actually slept. You ever hear handcuffs close and realize that sound might be the national anthem of closure? That's what it was. The metallic click that told me 6 months of stupidity had finally paid off. The police led Melissa past me, her designer heels clacking like the world's saddest drum solo. One officer muttered, "Watch your step," which was hilarious because falling was exactly what she'd been doing since the day she said, "I do." I stood there, calm as a Buddha statue and business casual. My hands were in my pockets, my smirk firmly attached, and my soul busy doing cartwheels. For the first time since the wedding, I didn't feel like a prop in someone else's movie. I was the damn director now. Detective Ruiz hovered near the doorway, arms crossed. "Mr. Ward," she said, "you handled that better than most." "Really?" I asked. "Because internally, I'm doing jazz hands and screaming." She almost smiled. Almost. "You'll get used to peace again?" "Give it time." "Peace?" I snorted. That a prescription or a podcast? Her phone buzzed. She answered, and I tuned out. Across the room, Owen, the co-star of this financial horror story, was getting read his rights. The man looked deflated, like someone had popped his self-esteem with a pin labeled consequence. He tried to whisper something to Melissa, but the officer shut him down fast. Watching that was the emotional equivalent of warm apple pie. When they finally hauled her out, she turned to me, eyes wide, mascara running like a stock market crash. "Ethan, please, you have to believe me." I tilted my head. "Which part, the affair or the felony?" She shook her head violently. "I did it for us." I laughed loud enough for everyone to hear. "Sweetheart, you don't launder love." That broke her composure. She lunged toward me, the cuffs stopping her short. "You'll regret this." "Oh, I already did," I said. "About 6 months ago. You just didn't notice." Ruiz stepped between us, nodding to the officers. "Take her." As they escorted her away, her voice echoed down the hallway, a messy blend of curses, excuses, and the distant realization that orange jumpsuits don't come in "my husband's an idiot" chic. After the chaos cleared, Ruiz came over, notebook in hand. "We'll need a full statement for the record." "Sure," I said. "Should I start with how she stole my Netflix password or skip to the embezzlement?" "Stick to financial activity," she said dryly. "We'll save streaming theft for another day." I sat, rubbing my temples while she scribbled notes. Every detail I shared felt surreal, like describing someone else's nightmare. The fake invoices, the offshore accounts, the staged business meetings. Ruiz kept nodding, occasionally muttering things like textbook operation and "she's done this before." Before? That word hit hard. "You mean I wasn't her first?" I asked. Ruiz gave me that look, half sympathy, half welcome to the club. "Scammers rarely start at their marriages. You were just the most convenient upgrade." I exhaled through my nose. "Great, so I'm basically a human gold card. Platinum, actually," she said, flipping her notebook shut. "But we caught her because you stayed calm. That's rare." "Calm?" I scoffed. "I've been running on sarcasm and caffeine for weeks." "Whatever works," she said. "We'll contact you once she's booked." She left, and suddenly the office felt enormous and empty. The same room where Melissa once promised a bright future now smelled like stale coffee and broken delusions. Daniel appeared minutes later, clutching his camera bag like a comfort animal. "Dude," he whispered, glancing around. "That was epic. You good?" "Define good." "You're free, man." He grinned. "You just watched karma pay cash." "Yeah," and I said, leaning back in the chair. "With interest." We left the building together, stepping into the sunlight. Reporters were already gathering near the entrance, like vultures sensing emotional roadkill. Cameras flashed. I heard someone yell, "Mr. Ward, is it true your wife used your accounts for fraud?" I smiled for the first time that day, really smiled. "Guess you'll have to ask her accountant." Daniel snorted as we pushed past the chaos and climbed into my car. "You're trending already, man." "Trending?" He showed me his phone. The headline read, "Local woman and partner arrested in $2 million fraud scheme. Husband helps crack case." There was a photo of me walking behind the cops, looking unintentionally heroic. I looked like I was about to sell a revenge seminar course. "Fantastic." "Enten," I said. "I've become the poster boy for marital due diligence." "Could be worse," Daniel said. "You could still be married." Touché. The drive home was quiet, which was new. No anxious rehearsing, no mental chess match, just aired. I didn't even turn on the radio. I didn't need a soundtrack. The silence was enough. When I pulled into my driveway, everything looked the same. The garden, the porch light, the wind chime she insisted on buying because it was calming. Funny how normalcy doesn't care that your life imploded. I sat there for a minute, staring at the house, feeling the weight of every lie that had lived inside it. Then I got out, walked up to the door, and for the first time, it felt like it belonged to me again. Inside, I poured a drink. Bourbon, neat victory flavor, and let the burn remind me I was still alive. The phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You think you've won? I'll ruin you from inside those walls." I rolled my eyes. Melissa's first message from custody. Classic. I typed back, "Orange is your color. Try not to drop the soap of morality." Then I blocked the number. By evening, the story was everywhere. Local news, social media, even a Reddit thread titled, "Dude Outsmarts Wife's Fraud Empire." Some commenters called me a hero. Others said I must have known. Internet justice is weird like that. Half applause, half conspiracy. Daniel came over again, this time with pizza. "You're officially famous," he said. Half the comments want to buy you a beer. Great, I said. Maybe I can start a GoFundMe for emotional damage. He laughed, handing me a slice. So what now? Freedom tour? Revenge memoir? Nah, I said. Just sleep, maybe therapy, possibly both. We ate, watched a little basketball, pretended life was normal. At one point, he said, Man, I can't believe she fooled everyone, even me. And I photograph people for a living. Yeah, I said. She was good. But you know what beats good? Recorded evidence. True, he said, raising his soda. To receipts. To receipts, I echoed, clinking his can with my glass. Later that night, I sat alone on the porch, watching the city lights blink in the distance. It was strange, peaceful but not empty, just quiet, like the world had finally exhaled with me. I thought about the first day I met her, how she'd walked into that conference room with confidence, wit, and just enough charm to feel dangerous. Back then, I thought I'd won the lottery. Turns out it was one of those scratch-offs that says, try again. My phone buzzed again, this time from Detective Ruiz. She's cooperating, gave us the full account trail. You'll get restitution once assets are recovered. I smiled. Restitution, I said aloud. Now that's foreplay for my bank account. Then another text followed. You did good, Mr. Ward. Take some time for yourself. Planning on it, I typed back. Step 1, therapy. Step 2, sleep. Step 3, burn the wedding playlist. She replied with a simple thumbs-up emoji. I didn't think she even used emojis. That meant something. A few days passed. Reporters stopped calling. The neighbors stopped pretending to check in, and the house finally sounded like it was mine again. I cleaned out her closet, donated half her stuff, and boxed the rest for evidence storage. Her perfume still lingered, faint but stubborn, like the smell of a bad decision. I found our wedding album, tucked behind a pile of paperwork. Flipping through it was surreal. 2 smiling idiots posing under fairy lights, her hand on my chest, my eyes full of hope. I traced the photo with my thumb, then laughed softly. Man, you really didn't stand a chance, did you? I threw the album in the trash. It landed with a thud that sounded final. The following week, Ruiz invited me to the precinct to sign a few final documents. When I arrived, she met me in the lobby with her usual calm. Case closed, she said. She took a plea deal. Of course she did, I said. Always looking for the shortcut. She'll serve time, Ruiz said. Oh, and 2. I nodded, relief and exhaustion mixing in equal measure. So that's it? No more secrets? No more fake companies? She smiled faintly. You're free, Mr. Ward. Go live your life. On impulse, I offered her a handshake. Thanks, detective. Seriously. If you ever get married, call me first. I'll run a background check for free. She actually laughed. A short, real one. Deal. When I got home that night, Daniel was waiting on the porch again, 2 beers in hand. Heard the good news, he said. It's officially over. Officially, I said, sitting beside him. He handed me a beer. So, what's next? I looked out at the dark street, the hum of cicadas filling the air. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe start small, new hobbies, new people. Someone who doesn't open offshore accounts as foreplay. Daniel laughed. Aim high, man. We drank in silence for a while. Then he said, You ever think you'll forgive her? I thought about it. The lies, the manipulation, the months of pretending. Then I shrugged. Forgive? Maybe. Forget. Not a chance. You don't forget fire after it burns your house down. But you learn where to put the smoke alarms next time. Later, after he left, I went inside and looked around my quiet, peaceful house. For once, it felt real. No secrets, no fake smiles, no emotional booby traps. Just me, a couch, and the faint hum of normal life returning. I turned off the lights, ready to head upstairs, but paused at the doorway. Game over, I whispered. Then I smiled, because for the first time in forever, it actually was. You'd think that after the cops drag your wife and her side hustle of a boyfriend out in handcuffs, life would immediately turn into champagne and redemption arcs. Nope, turns out. When your marriage explodes on local news, the cleanup phase looks a lot less like victory and a lot more like paperwork, gossip, and people pretending they always had a bad feeling about her. The week after Melissa's arrest felt like living inside a reality show I didn't sign up for. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, relatives, co-workers, everyone suddenly wanted a quote or a confession. My inbox looked like a crime scene forum. The neighbors, bless their bored little hearts, treated me like a zoo exhibit. Mrs. Parker, next door, accidentally watered her plants 3 times a day just to stand within eavesdropping distance. Every morning, I'd find myself on the front porch with coffee, scrolling through headlines like Wife Gone Wild, Financial Fraud, or Emotional Breakdown, and Meet the Husband Who Helped the FBI Catch a Queen Pin. The comments were worse, half sympathy, half conspiracy theories. One guy wrote, "He probably helped her at first and flipped when she cut him out." I almost replied, "Buddy, I can barely help myself pick socks that match." Even my job turned into an awkward soap opera. I walked into the office Monday morning and the silence hit like a wave. My boss, a man whose emotional range usually stopped at quarterly report, pulled me aside. "Ward," he said, "take as much time as you need." "Time for what?" I asked. "I'm divorced, not dead." He blinked. "Still, must be difficult." "Define difficult," I said. "You mean emotionally, financially, or the part where my wife's mugshot has better lighting than my LinkedIn photo?" He coughed, patted my shoulder, and walked off, probably regretting human empathy entirely. By midweek, social media had moved on, but the whispers lingered. At the grocery store, a stranger stopped me in the frozen foods aisle. "Hey, aren't you the guy whose wife—" "Yes," I said. "And yes, I'm buying ice cream. Emotional support flavor." She looked embarrassed, muttered, "God bless," and fled toward the produce. I told Daniel about it later that night over burgers and beer. He laughed so hard he nearly inhaled a fry. "Dude, you're a legend now. Everyone's rooting for you." "Yeah," I said. "Everyone loves a comeback story, as long as it's not theirs," he grinned. "At least you're free." "Freedom's expensive," I muttered, thinking of the lawyer fees, the asset freeze hearings, and the endless just confirming emails from the bank. Still, he was right. The silence at home no longer felt heavy, it felt earned. Detective Ruiz called that Friday. Her voice was brisk, businesslike as ever. "Melissa and Owen both accepted plea deals. She'll serve 8 years with eligibility for parole in 4. He's facing 10. I let out a slow breath. 8 years. I repeated. "That's what, 1 year for each time she said, 'Trust me'?" "Roughly." Ruiz said, deadpan. "Restitution paperwork is in progress. You'll recover most of what was taken." "Most?" "There were offshore assets we can't trace yet. But you'll come out okay." "Okay sounds like a luxury item lately," I said. She paused. "You did well, Mr. Ward. Most people collapse under that kind of betrayal." "Maybe I just got numb early," I said. "Comes with marriage experience." Ruiz actually laughed, a short, surprised one. "Try to take a break," she said. "Rebuild, and if anyone asks you for an investment opportunity, hang up." "Copy that, detective," I said. "No more business meetings with criminals. Scout's honor." That weekend, Daniel showed up with a six-pack and his laptop. "Thought you might want to see this," he said, pulling up an edited video he'd made. A montage of my wedding photos dissolving into news clips of the arrest, set to Bad Guy by Billie Eilish. I nearly spit my beer. "Please tell me you're not posting that." "Relax," he said. "It's for me. Dark humor therapy." "Dark humor therapy," I repeated. "That's my new religion." We spent hours laughing about everything. Melissa's fake investment pitch deck, Owen's tragic haircut and his mugshot, the irony that the woman who once lectured me on financial literacy now had a public defender. It wasn't cruel laughter. It was survival. Every chuckle shaved off another layer of bitterness. At one point, Daniel looked at me and said, "So, you gonna date again?" I choked on my drink. "Date? Bro, I still flinch when someone says joint account." He grinned. "Eventually, though?" "Eventually," I said. "After therapy, a lobotomy, and maybe a background check service subscription." The following Monday, I took a day off work and drove out to the lake, somewhere quiet, away from all the noise. The water was calm, a mirror that didn't lie. I sat on the dock with my coffee, watching ducks fight over breadcrumbs and thinking about everything that had happened. For months, I'd lived like a man auditioning for sainthood, keeping cool, smiling through betrayal, cracking jokes to keep from breaking. But sitting there, I finally felt the weight drop. The anger was gone, so was the shame. What remained was a weird kind of gratitude, because for all the wreckage, the whole mess had peeled me open. I'd learned what manipulation looked like up close, how charm could double as camouflage, how silence could be the loudest kind of revenge. And I'd learned that sometimes peace doesn't come wrapped in forgiveness. It comes when you simply stop caring whether they ever understand what they did. I tossed a stone into the lake and said out loud, Here's to the fallout. The ripples spread, soft and endless. A few days later, Ruiz called again. One more thing, she said. There's a restitution hearing next month. You'll have to attend. Sure, I said. Can I wear a world's most gullible husband t-shirt, or is that too casual? Business casual, she said, ignoring the joke. Bring your sense of humor. You'll need it. When the hearing came, I walked into that courthouse with the swagger of a man who's seen hell and now owns property there. Melissa sat at the defendant's table, orange jumpsuit, hair flat, eyes dull. For the first time, she looked real. No filters, no facade. She didn't even look at me. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. The judge read out the charges, the sentence, the restitution order. Every word felt like punctuation at the end of a very long, badly written sentence I'd been forced to live through. When it was over, the bailiff led her away again. She glanced back briefly, no tears, no pleas this time, just resignation. And somehow, that was enough closure for me. Outside the courthouse, Daniel was waiting. Well, he asked. It's done, I said, officially this time. He handed me a burger wrapped in foil. Celebration food, I laughed. You really know how to romance a guy. Don't get used to it, he said. I'm still charging you for emotional labor. Life started to normalize after that. The headlines faded, the calls stopped, and the gossip finally ran out of breath. I went back to work full-time, took up running again, and even started cooking without burning the house down. One evening, while cleaning out the kitchen drawer, I found the old wedding USB Daniel had given me years ago. For a second, I considered watching it, just to see how blind I'd been. Then I tossed it in the trash. Some ghosts don't deserve a replay. Weeks later, Ruiz emailed one final time. Case closed, assets restored, stay out of trouble, Mr. Ward. I replied, no promises, trouble seems to like me. She sent back a single emoji, which I decided to interpret as affection. That Friday, Daniel showed up again, as he always did when he sensed I needed to laugh. So, hero, he said, dropping a pizza box on the counter, how's freedom treating you? Like bad takeout, I said. A little greasy, but still better than starvation. We ate, watched a movie, and halfway through he said, you realize you could totally write a book about this, right? A book? Yeah. Title it How to Catch a Wife. 101. You'd sell millions. I rolled my eyes. Yeah, and then every con artist in America would buy it for research. Fine, he said, grinning. At least start a podcast. The Fraudcast. I groaned. I hate that that's actually a good name. After he left, I stood on the balcony with a glass of bourbon, the city lights flickering below. I thought about everything. The wedding, the discovery, the chaos, the trial. And weirdly enough, I smiled. Because in the ashes of all that, something good had survived. Me, I whispered. You made it, idiot. And clinked my glass against the railing. For the first time in months, the laughter that bubbled up didn't sound bitter. It sounded free. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight pouring through the window and realized I'd finally slept through the night. No dreams of courtrooms or fake bank statements, just quiet. I made breakfast, actual breakfast, eggs that weren't overcooked, coffee that didn't taste like regret, and turned on the radio. The host was talking about second chances, about how some endings are just disguised beginnings. I laughed out loud. All right, universe, I said. Message received. I stepped onto the porch, sipping coffee, watching kids ride bikes down the street, and my neighbor, Mrs. Parker, waved cautiously. I waved back, and for once, she didn't look like she wanted to ask a single question. The air smelled like cut grass and peace. Real peace. Not the kind you fake with forced smiles or I'm fine texts. The kind that sits in your chest and says, you survived the fallout and you're still standing. And that was enough. It's funny how quiet can sound like music when you've spent months living in chaos. My mornings used to start with Melissa clacking around the kitchen in heels, yelling into Bluetooth calls about clients that didn't exist, while I stood there flipping eggs and pretending not to notice my life circling the drain. Now, the only thing I hear is my coffee machine humming and the neighbor's dog making bad decisions with a trash can. It's peace, sure, but the kind that sneaks up on you after a storm, leaving you unsure if you should celebrate or just sit still and not jinx it. 6 months after everything ended, life had settled. I wake up, make coffee strong enough to restart my soul, and sit out on the balcony overlooking the city skyline that used to feel too big for me. Funny how perspective works. Once you stop caring about who's watching, everything starts looking like freedom. Every evening I come home from work, loosen my tie, and step out to the same balcony with a cup of coffee. The neighbors wave. I wave back. Some still whisper. You can tell by the way they tilt their heads, like they're watching a movie that already spoiled itself, but they can't look away. I used to hate it. Now I kind of enjoy it. Let them whisper. At least they're talking about me because of something I survived, not something I screwed up. Sometimes I catch snippets. That's him, the husband who caught her, or poor guy, wonder if he'll ever date again. It doesn't bother me anymore. Being the husband whose wife went to jail used to feel like a scarlet letter. Now it's just trivia. The world moves on. The mail keeps coming. The trash still needs taking out. Life doesn't pause just because yours exploded once. Daniel still checks in every week like some unofficial emotional support sponsor. He'll text stuff like, still married to freedom, or saw a woman at Starbucks who looked like Melissa. I left immediately. I send him memes or sarcastic replies like, tell the barista to run. Our friendship turned into something sturdy, built on shared disbelief and gallows humor. If trauma were currency, we'd be rich. Detective Ruiz, surprisingly, still emails me once a month, usually a quick, hope you're doing well, or an article about another scammer getting caught. She even sent me a meme once. It was a picture of a wedding cake with a for sale sign stuck in it. The caption said, never again. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. I replied, you're the only woman who's ever arrested my type. She didn't respond, but I like to think she smirked. There are moments, quiet ones, when I still think of Melissa. Not with anger, not even regret, just disbelief. Like remembering a bad haircut you swore looked good at the time. I'll see something small, her old mug I never threw out, a dress shirt she once ironed, and my brain will flash her face. Then, just as quickly, the image fades. Healing doesn't come as an announcement. It sneaks in like a thief, taking the pain first, then the obsession, until one day you realize you're lighter. I used to replay her lies in my head, wondering where I went wrong. Now I don't care where it started. She made her choices. I made mine. If anything, I owe her one thing, clarity, because I finally know what I want. Peace. And man, peace tastes a lot like coffee and zero drama. The strangest part of recovery wasn't losing her. It was relearning who I was without her noise. You don't realize how much space someone's manipulation takes up until it's gone. Suddenly you have room to breathe, to think, to hear your own damn thoughts again. I started small. New hobbies, weekend hikes, cooking that didn't involve emotional seasoning. I even joined a book club. Don't laugh. It's mostly retirees and one guy who thinks Hemingway was overrated, but it beats listening to my own brain argue about what ifs. Work became easier too. My boss stopped tiptoeing around me and I actually started enjoying what I do again. Turns out, when you're not living with a con artist, compliance reports feel oddly therapeutic. Numbers don't lie. People do. A few weeks ago, Daniel dragged me out to a bar for what he called my freedom anniversary. He insisted we needed to mark the occasion. I told him it sounded like something sold on Hallmark shelves next to happy divorce cards. But I went anyway. We ended up at this dive downtown, sticky floors, loud music, neon beer signs that haven't worked properly since the Obama administration. He raised his glass. To surviving the worst kind of marriage. I clinked mine against his. And to never marrying again unless there's a background check and a prenup thicker than the Bible. The bartender overheard us and grinned. Rough divorce? Daniel gestured at me. His wife's in prison. The bartender blinked. Oh, then drinks are on the house. We laughed until my sides hurt. I realized then that humor wasn't just how I coped. It was how I reclaimed control. She'd taken my trust, my savings, and a year of my life, but she didn't get my ability to laugh. That's mine. A few nights later, I got a letter, actual paper, old school, postmarked from the correctional facility. The handwriting was unmistakable. Melissa. For a solid 5 minutes, I stared at it, debating whether to read it or just toss it into the trash unopened. Curiosity won, as it always does. The letter was 2 pages long. She wrote about therapy in prison, about realizing her mistakes, about how she missed what we had. It was all the usual greatest hits of regret. No new material. She said she hoped one day I could forgive her. I didn't write back, not because I was angry, but because I genuinely had nothing left to say. Forgiveness isn't something you mail out like a care package. It happens quietly, in your own time, and sometimes not at all. Besides, what she really wanted wasn't forgiveness. It was validation. And that was the one thing I'd finally learned to stop giving her. Instead, I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and slid it into my filing cabinet under closed cases. Then I poured myself a drink and toasted to progress. These days, peace looks simple. It's waking up without checking anyone's phone but mine. It's watching the sunset without wondering who's lying behind my back. It's grocery shopping without picturing a tabloid headline. I don't measure peace by the absence of noise anymore, and I measure it by the absence of chaos. Some evenings, I take long walks downtown. The city's the same, coffee shops buzzing, couples arguing softly, cab drivers yelling at bad parkers. But I'm different. I see it all with this calm detachment, like a man who's been to war and now just appreciates traffic lights that actually work. The funny thing about rebuilding is that people expect a dramatic transformation, a new career, a fitness journey, a tattoo that says never again. But sometimes healing is just learning to enjoy normal, eating breakfast without dread, smiling without suspicion. That's the real comeback. Now, Daniel's still pushing me to date again. You can't let one psycho ruin love for you, he says. Easy for him to say. His ex just stole his Netflix account, not his credit identity. Still, he's persistent. He even tried to set me up with one of his friends, a teacher named Grace. Sweet, grounded, smart, basically the human opposite of Melissa. We went for coffee once. She was funny, kind, real. We talked for hours about movies, travel, and how both of us had lost a little faith in people, but were trying anyway. When we parted ways, she smiled and said, "You're easy to talk to." I smiled back. "That's because I've been through the world's worst interview process." She laughed. It felt good, simple, unforced. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but for once, I'm not rushing it. I've learned that peace doesn't mean isolation. It just means protecting your calm, like it's sacred. Every so often, I'll get an email notification from the prison system. Standard updates for victims. Inmate transfer. Parole hearing scheduled. I read them, shrug, and delete. There was a time when those messages would have sent me spiraling. Now they're just reminders of a life that isn't mine anymore. And that's the beauty of it. Because peace isn't found in revenge or in proving you were right. It's found when you stop letting someone else's chaos rent space in your head. Sometimes, late at night, I sit on that same balcony, sipping whiskey instead of coffee, and think about everything that happened. The lies, the sting, the arrest. It feels like a different lifetime now. I remember the man I was back then, angry, confused, still trying to understand how love turned into liability. I want to tell him it gets better, that one day he'll laugh again, eat again, trust again, because I did. The night air hums softly as I lean back in my chair. Somewhere down the block, a radio plays an old song about starting over. Fitting. I raise my glass toward the horizon, where the city lights blur into gold and whisper, "To peace." Not the fragile kind that depends on other people behaving, the real kind. The kind that lives in silence, in laughter, in being completely okay with sitting alone and not feeling lonely. Because 6 months after my wedding, the photographer called me. He said he'd found something. Turns out he didn't just expose a lie, he handed me a mirror, and when I looked into it long enough, I didn't just see the man she betrayed, I saw the man who made it out. Peace doesn't come wrapped in romance or revenge. It comes when you finally stop needing either. And me? I've got peace, a half-full cup of coffee and a new sunrise waiting. That's enough.